God, I'm telling you, my dogs are barking today.
But man, my dogs are barking.
Well, welcome into the My Dogs Are Barking podcast, and welcome into State of the Dogs, where we are giving an update about Mississippi State and where we are with them. We're bringing in a co-host, Austin. Austin, man, it's football season. Like it's time, man. How are you feeling?
It is, man. I'm feeling, just so much excitement. I'm just so excited to finally be back. The countdown's been going for so long, and it's hard to believe that it's finally here. I'm still thinking about it. It's still hard to fathom. I'm just so excited. Week 0 felt so great to get back in that Saturday groove, and it's only up from here.
That's right. I mean, we finally made it to the week of, so we can start looking forward to saying, hey, this Saturday we have a full scope of games. And for Mississippi State, this show, all throughout the offseason, if you have some time, we have interviewed a representative from each team that Mississippi State is going to be facing throughout the 2024 season. Take a look at those. Those are some good insight into each and every team. But this series that we're starting this week, State of the Dogs, is just talking about kind of an update where we are this week. So we're going to be talking about injury news, talk about starters, all those kind of things that are kind of relevant to this week. And so to get us started, Austin, man, I'd love to go over, the actual depth chart was released this week. And something interesting on the depth chart was that Kevon Lee, the transfer from Penn State, was seen as running back number 1. Also listed up there kind of as an or option was Davon Booth, the Utah State transfer. Anything, kind of just some takeaways from this, having Kevon Lee as running back number 1. I also mentioned Jeffrey Pittman. Coach Jeff Lebby mentioned is no longer or is not with the team currently. He did not say no longer with the team, period, currently, so he could come back.
Yeah.
But takeaways, having Mr. Kevon Lee as running back number 1.
Yeah, I think I remember when he transferred to Mississippi State, it was kind of out of left field. And we had Woody Marks here, and obviously this is going into year 2. Last year didn't really play much. Jeffrey Pittman got a lot of snaps, but it was mainly Woody Marks got a handful of the snaps and pretty much got most of them. He led the league, led in rushing. But Kevon Lee, he was kind of a question mark for us last year. I thought he was going to play more than he did, but obviously now that Woody Marks has left, it's only up from here for Kevon Lee. I'm really excited about having him. He had a lot of great times at Penn State. I look, if y'all haven't already, look at some of the highlights of Kevon Lee. He's just a really, really, dynamic running back. He can kind of do whatever he wants you to. And we have just a good running back room in general. I think Davon Booth, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if you tell me at week 10 that he's the starter at running back. We have a lot of guys. Xavier Gayton, I think, is his name. He was the number 1 player on 3 last year in the recruiting class. He's just a true freshman. He's going to get some snaps week 1 versus EKU. And then you got, obviously, Jeffrey Pittman, you said, is not on the team right now. He probably will be coming back. Just that I'm guessing, but, just some internal matters with all that. And so we'll see. But I'm really excited to have this running back room. And Kevon Lee, I think he's in it for honestly, a really good season. I'm really looking forward to having him.
Yeah, something to mention with Kevon Lee that I didn't realize, last season, I understand it's a different offense and everything, but last season, Kevon Lee only got 12 carries. But in those 12 carries, he rushed for 75 yards, which is over 6 yards a carry. Go back 2 years prior, he was at Penn State. He rushed for over 500 yards as a true freshman in the Big Ten. Now he has an offense that is going to be very, very dynamic, as you mentioned. But Jeff Lebby, you think about these downfield shots that he had at Oklahoma, but he uses the running back position frequently. He runs a lot of guys in the running back room. So Kevon Lee could be in for a great year. Not only is he going to be a guy who because it's not like he's the bell cow, the feature back that's going to get 30 carries a game. If he carries the ball, he had 12 carries all season last year. If he carries the ball 10 times in a game, what's he going to do whenever play action's added to the mix? And you mentioned, Xavier Guyton. That's a guy that on 3 had as a 4-star running back last season. Nobody's talking about him. He's a guy that Jeff Lebby mentioned that this Saturday he will see some playing time at some point. And then you mentioned Davon Booth is there. Whenever Pittman gets back, that'll be great. But you have really 3 running backs that could be playing a lot, and honestly 4 when you count Johnny Daniels, who played a lot in the spring game. So Mississippi State's rushing attack could look very different, or will look very different than how we've seen it. Honestly, we might be able to see a running game. Maybe people get as many touches as they did in 2019. It was the last time, because after the air raid, and after whatever last season was. So it's interesting to think about what Kevon Lee can do. And another guy that is going to be very important to this team, of course, is Blake Shapen. And Blake Shapen, being QB number 1, is going to be leading the team. He mentioned in a press conference today how excited he is to take the field. Every time he talks, man, there seems to be a level of confidence in his ability. And so, coming into man, we talked about it all offseason, but it's actually here, Austin. What do you make about Blake Shapen being QB number 1? Like, what does that bring to the table in terms of a mindset going into a game, knowing he's going to be the guy?
Yeah, I think it's good that we have. I mean, right when Blake Shapen announced that he's transferring here, I think everybody knew, all State fans knew, that he was going to be our guy. We weren't going to go try to get somebody else. I know we were looking at all kind of quarterbacks going into the transfer portal, but right when Blake Shapen transferred, I think everybody knew he's our guy. And I mean, I hear a lot of people in the media talking about it, but I think that we go as far as Blake Shapen takes us this season. If Blake Shapen has a bad season, I mean, the Bulldogs are going to have a bad season. If he has a great season like he had in 2021, then I think that we're made for a good season. So I'm really excited about having him. I mean, he was great at Baylor when he was stayed healthy, but that's the main problem. You got to stay healthy. And in this league with the huge defensive lineman that we have, it's just going to be so important to keep Blake Shapen healthy, just because, Chris Parson, he played a little bit last year. I mean, he had 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I think that he has a very high ceiling, but he's not there yet. And obviously he needs a lot more time to develop. Michael Van Buren, the 3rd string, he was good coming out of high school, but again, we haven't seen him, and he's just a true freshman. And so I don't think that we need to put any pressure on those guys to be starting in the SEC, going into this season. It's all on Blake Shapen's hands. And, I truly believe that we're only as good as Blake Shapen is, and we'll see where he takes us. I'm really excited, and I feel confident. And like you said, Jeff Lebby has completely confidence. Listen to all these press conferences. He's always talking about Blake Shapen and how their minds think alike, and they're just, they're very similar, and they both talk about winning so much. I mean, that's really all Blake and Jeff Lebby talk about, is just, trying to win games, win as many games as possible. They have, they have goals set for the season, and I'm really excited to see Blake Shapen. And I feel, I didn't really know at first how to think about it, but I feel good about it going into this season. He had a spring with Jeff Lebby, played great in the spring game, had just some really good looking throws, and just far, throwing down deep throws that we haven't seen in so long. So that felt really good, and I'm feeling pretty good about Blake Shapen.
Yeah, and it seems as if coming on to this week, we have a matchup with Mississippi State and Eastern Kentucky, first game of the season. Eastern Kentucky, a team that struggled last season, lost. It's kind of a wash. Lost guys to the portal, got some guys in. One of the guys was their quarterback is a transfer from, I believe it's Western Illinois. I apologize for not knowing exactly, but he threw for 2,000 yards last season. So a competent quarterback. This defense certainly will be tested. When you think about this team and going into this week against Eastern Kentucky, what exactly what will this team, what will fans need to see coming out at the end of week 1, at the end of this game? What do you think fans should be saying about this game?
I think honestly, it's just mainly one word, and that's excitement. I think that we need to go and we need to score 45 plus, and we need to have a good looking offense. We need to come out straight, because if we just, I'm nervous about the excitement in Starkville right now. I don't know how it is. A lot of excitement was happening last year, and we thought we were going to win 8 games last year. And obviously we didn't even go to a bowl game. So I think that really shook up a lot of fans, and they don't really know to get excited for this season. It's only year 1 for Jeff Lebby. We're not expecting a whole much. A 6-6 would be so great. And, if he brings excitement and say, hey, State's playing in Starkville on Saturday, we need to go. He says showtime, and it's going to be a show. And he talks about, I mean, there's only a handful of days that we go to Davis Wade to come out for a game, and he wants to make it memorable. And so I think it's very important for the fans to see excitement, just because I think that they're just, I mean, to be honest, last year was such a disappointing year. They don't, they're kind of nervous about this year. And I think that Jeff Lebby needs to show week one, hey, we're coming to play. We're going to have an exciting offense, and it's going to be an exciting time to be in Davis Wade. So I think that's very important to the fans. And if the players show that they're really locked in and they're here to win ball games this season, then I think that it's going to be a great a good enough year for the fans.
Yeah. It seems as if at the end of the day, obviously Mississippi State needs to win, but really, man, they need to get in and they need to control the game from start to finish. This game does not need to be close. At the given moment, Vegas has this game at Mississippi State by 25.5. So three touchdowns, a little bit more, almost to 4. That would be, that'd be something. But Mississippi State honestly needs to win. Would 34-10 be something you'd be excited about? I don't know. I feel like it needs to be further than that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that just week one, I mean, knowing who EKU played, I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect them at all, but I think that we really just need to light up that scoreboard. I think that 45 plus is what we really do to shoot for, even though I know we're going to talk about injuries, but Kelly Akari, not having him is going to hurt us. But even then, I mean, I think that we really need to just empty out our bench by the end of the game. I think we need to see everybody playing, because this needs to be a game where it's not, I don't want to be like, we're going to be there. We're going to be in attendance on Saturday. I don't want to be nervous. I don't want to, there doesn't need to be a time halfway through the third quarter where I'm still, still pretty nervous. That does not need to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, Mississippi State needs to win this game. Really, they need to win it by 30. I mean, they need to win this game by a lot. It does not need to be close. And look, because of the type of offense that Jeff Lebby has, taking shots down the field, like all those things, I would think, because of just the difference, really think about the difference in the offensive lines. So that's where the game is won a lot of the time, is the trenches, right? Mississippi State's offensive line, this offensive line is not played together. But because of the quality, at least that we think Mississippi State has, it would seem as if they're going to be able to run the ball very effectively and score and win rather easily. But man, you just never know what the outcome is going to be. But yeah, Mississippi State, at the end of the day, this has been talked about. This is not the first time we've discussed it. But Caleb Cunningham, 5-star from Choctaw County, committed to Alabama. Even after he mentioned he has a lot of interest in Mississippi State. In fact, one of his visits, he said he almost committed to Mississippi State. And now this weekend is going to be at a visit at Ole Miss. Well, this is an opportunity to show these guys this offense can be successful. Because right now they have no reason to believe that it can, because of the past, past history of wide receivers. I think Jeff Lebby knows that. He knows they need to put on a show. But also, you obviously don't want to give away too much, but use the depth that they have. I think at the end of the day, I think the running backs are going to be able to be very effective because there's so many of them, the quality of our offensive line, but keep Blake Shapen protected. Don't get him hit. I think that's going to be a big takeaway. And you mentioned we're going to be at the game. So if there is any listeners who are also at the game, and if you have a second, man, we would love, shoot us a DM. We'd love to say what's up while we are there. And lastly, Austin, man, I wanted to talk about the schedule. So we have a very, very exciting schedule, because it is we're finally here. Like, it's finally time for football. Just kind of start the morning on Saturday. You got Georgia and Clemson. That's 11 a.m. kickoff. I mean, that really seems like it should be prime time, but who am I? I'm not an ABC official. And especially because the prime time lineup, there's really not a lot of great games late, but that's okay. But yeah, Florida and Georgia kick it off at 11 a.m. Also, West Virginia and Penn State are also kicking off at 11. Watch for West Virginia. They have a lot of momentum, and they're at home. So just keep an eye on that one. Tennessee takes on Chattanooga, get some SEC action. Akron and Ohio State kickoff. Texas and Colorado State will probably be interesting for the first quarter. But as far as 11 a.m. Section of games, Georgia and Clemson seem to be the winner there. And then, of course, you got Miami and Florida there at 2:30. Moving on from here, we have that 2:30 slot. As I mentioned, I think that Miami and Florida is going to be the best game available during that time. Everything else is just kind of a lot of other people's warm-up games. And then you move into the night, Mississippi State and Eastern Kentucky at 5 o'clock Central. Moving into the evening, Alabama takes on Western Kentucky at 6 o'clock. But yeah, as you mentioned, as we talked about, that evening slot, the only thing that is a game you might want to see is Notre Dame and Texas A&M. They're at 6:30 for the primetime slot. That ought to be a good game. So Austin, coming through these games, also Ole Miss takes on Furman at 6. Coming through all these games, Austin, is there a must watch? What would you say this week is the must watch game of the week?
Whew. I mean, it's tough, just because it's week 1. It's so tough, and one game. I mean, I'd like to point out. I mean, 3 of the games, to be honest. I think A&M Notre Dame is going to be a very important game for both teams. They're trying to, even if they lose 2 games, they can still go to the playoff. Both of these teams, and so I think it's very important for them. Penn State, West Virginia. Watch out for Garrett Green at West Virginia. That guy, he can flat out ball, and West Virginia is going to be a sleeper this year. I'm just saying. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't looked at the days. I didn't know Clemson and Georgia's playing at 11. That's that's wild. I don't know who thought about that. But I think that Clemson, to be honest, I mean, they're my national champs this year. I think that because of what happened last year to them, they were the number 1 team all season. Then they lost 1 game to
hold on one
second.
Hold on one second. You said Clemson is your national title game, but did you mean Georgia?
No. Georgia. Very sorry. Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in Georgia. My bad. Yeah. That's very important. My bad. Yeah. Georgia's my national champs. And I think that just because of what happened to them last year, number 1 team all season, got beat out by Alabama, and then they all of a sudden weren't in the playoff picture after being number 1. I think they're going to come out with so much fire this year. And Clemson, Cade Klubnik, I mean, this is going to be a big year for him. I think that he can be a really elite quarterback. And what better way to show that in Georgia? I think it's in Atlanta, but still, I mean, mainly Georgia fans are going to be there. I'm so excited for that game. It's going to be, I honestly think that's a must-watch game. I think that, both teams have so much to prove. Dabo, for the past, 3 or 4 seasons, about 3 seasons, has gotten so much hate. And I think that what a way to, to shut the haters up and go in Georgia and beat Kirby Smart on week 1. So I think this is a must-watch game. I think this is the biggest game easily of the week.
That's a good pick. That early morning, that 11 a.m., and they really are starting off early, starting off good. It's going to be a fun morning. That's going to be a great game. That the Miami and Florida one is interesting. It's Miami and Florida is probably my pick here, and it's because there's just so many question marks with both of them. It's just interesting. A lot of people right now, Billy Napier is, I believe it's 4-1 odds that he's the first head coach fired this season before anybody else, before Sam Pittman even. So people are wondering, man, is he gone? Well, then on top of that, people are now wondering about Miami. Miami had that embarrassing loss last season to Georgia Tech. That they're recruiting fairly well. They recruited well in the portal for sure, but what's going to happen there? They just always seem like they're ready to be a train wreck. That's an interesting game for both teams. Whoever loses that game, I don't know why. I just have a feeling, but whoever loses that game, watch for the head coach, even if it's Miami, for people to start saying, "Oh man, is he on the hot seat?" Because Florida's not a team you should be losing to. Keep an eye on that game. That will be my must-watch game of the week. I think it's going to be really interesting. I would say the best game of the week, though, is going to be in that evening slot, that 6:30 kick, Notre Dame and Texas A&M. That just has a close one-possession game written all over it. Right now, Texas A&M is favored by 2.5. So, basically a field goal there at the end. And I certainly could see that happening by the end of the night. So, man, I'll tell you what, we are so excited for this season, so excited for State of the Dogs. This is week number 1, man. We have something every single week throughout the season. We might even bring on a couple of guests, maybe even to preview a matchup for that week. We'll kind of dive into the College Huddle network for some of those sources, but we are so excited for the future of the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. Man, it's going to be a great time this season. Austin, final question here. With this game coming up this week with EKU and Mississippi State, give us your prediction. We need a score prediction from you. What do you think?
Yeah, and like I said, it's just so hard. I think I'm to be honest, just looking out. I mean, know what happened last year. I'm nervous for it. A lot of question marks on defense. I mean, pretty much the whole defense is a question mark. One of the guys that we were going to depend on so much, Corey Ellington's going to be out. He's going to be out week 1, but he's also going to be out probably a couple more weeks than that. So we're not going to have him. So just so many question marks on defense. We don't know. Offense, almost an entirely new offense. So it's just so hard to give a prediction. I'm going to say, I think they're going to score about 10 points. I think that our defense, I'm going to say 14. I'm going to give them 14, but I think we're going to go out there and score 42. I think that I would love to score more than that, but I just don't know. I would love to just empty our bench and just absolutely destroy them and just be dominant the whole time. But, I'm really going to be interested to see how that first quarter is going to go and, go from there. But Jeff Lebby, first game, EKU. I mean, we're playing an FCS team, and it just feels like such a big game. Then this feels like, this doesn't feel like just any UT Martin. This is a very important game for Jeff Lebby. I know he's going to be probably pretty nervous, and these players, they got to be ready to play. I don't care who we're playing. They got to be ready to come to Davis Wade and dominate.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this game is set at, and I'm glad you mentioned the points. I think you're right there. I think somewhere in the teens is probably right to expect from Eastern Kentucky. Right now, Vegas has this game over-under at 60.5 points. So they think a lot of points are going to be scored in this game, which hits right about where I'm thinking. I'm thinking Mississippi State wins this game 45-16, somewhere around there. I think that Eastern Kentucky is going to score a little bit, get a touchdown or two. And then hit a couple field goals. But, man, I really think anything under 40 points, in my opinion, I really think is going to be looked at as a disappointment just because of the hype, this offense. But, you're right. This is their first season. They've never done this before. So the Mississippi State fans, of course, have to be patient. But, look, from what fans had to sit with last season, and you remember, I go back to it often, but it's week 3 of last season. Mississippi State is coming off a win against Arizona. They're hosting LSU during the day. And the fans who were there, who sat and watched LSU just dismantle Mississippi State, it wasn't competitive in the trenches. It was not competitive. Will appreciate the fact that Mississippi State scores 40 points in this game. It's just such a far cry from last season. And so there's a lot to be built upon. There's a lot to be excited about if you are a Mississippi State fan. Friday is Cowbell Yell. If you're in Starkville or near that, Ernest is going to be performing. That's going to be huge. That's a great thing to support Mississippi State in. Hardy is going to be performing at Duty Noble Field in 2 weeks. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a Mississippi State fan. So get to checking that out. If you're just a college football fan, there's a lot to be excited about as well. So as we checked out those last couple of games. Austin, are you excited for this weekend?
Man, I'm excited, man. Hail State. It's gonna be a great weekend. I'm so excited to be back in Davis Wade.
It's going to be a great time. And we thank you guys so much for listening and for watching the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. He's Austin. I'm Landon. And thank you so much for tuning in to State of the Dogs on the My Dogs Are Barking podcast.